talk first about the
Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We are with Kimberly Carter Gamble and Foster Gamble from the Thrive Documentaries and Freedom Portal. Foster and Kimberly take people behind the scenes of their journey investigating the best innovative solutions from all over the world. They share the principles and insights that connect seemingly disparate subjects and bring people into an experience of an alive, connected, and solution-filled universe. Foster and Kimberly, today we're going to be exploring the unified field trip, Grounded Hope for a Thriving Future. And I would love it if you could explain a little further on who you are and what it is that you do in the world.
Kimberly, please, after you, ladies first.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And I am grateful to say that, yes, we're on the other side. We've just released the sequel to our first documentary, Thrive. What on Earth Will It Take, where we sort of took a deep dive into a diagnosis of what's going on in the planet to help inform the most leveraged solutions. And now, 9 years later, to the day, 11/11, we have released the sequel, Thrive 2, This Is What It Takes. And I am the producer and the director and the co-writer of both movies, and the CEO of Thrive On, the company that has put them out and also has some other fun and strategic offerings to help empower people, especially decentralized movements of people all over the world, to create meaningful, lasting solutions to create a world that works for everyone.
And I'm the main researcher behind this material, and I have co-written everything with Kimberly, and I get the great pleasure of directing the visual design for our films. I just love geometry, cosmic geometry, and visual imagery, and I'm a musician, so I get to work with the amazing musicians and visual effects artists and so forth. So it's almost like orgasmic artistically for us to get to work with all these brilliant people and bring all of that talent, all that skill to bear on providing a message that's just as clear and beautiful as possible for people to enjoy, kind of getting their minds blown and seeing opportunities that they may not have been aware of.
Yes, indeed. And what a beautiful film it is. Honestly, I just felt so blessed to watch it, and all the information that you bring forward, from the information around free energy, the information around how to cure cancer. I mean, you went down many different paths in this film, and it was really intriguing how you were able to just stick it out there. When you were in Africa working with Maxwell, you're like, I am determined to see if this works. And I wanted to ask you personally, what was it like to actually witness that and experience it? I got an idea of your excitement, but I can only imagine after such a long journey, actually feeling that accomplishment.
Oh, it was so thrilling. I mean, it's all coming back to me just as you're asking the question, because I've been studying all of this for 30 years. I've been looking for working free energy technologies for 20 years. And then to actually come across it in Zimbabwe, kind of the cradle of humanity, with this brilliant young man who probably didn't go past 7th grade, but he's a deeply spiritually connected person who spends hours a day in prayer. And the prayer opened up for him a connection to what he would call God, what we might call the unified field. Everybody's got their different names, but it's really this magic realm that we get to live in. And he really asked the universe for guidance as to how to be most helpful. And it literally gave him downloads on electronics and then on schematics and then on how to apply radio frequencies to access energy anywhere, anytime, specifically in his case, in order to provide refrigeration for rural medical clinics in Africa where people were dying for lack of refrigeration. So that was his specific motivation. And it was a very tricky situation, just kind of gaining his trust. And we actually really, love each other. But still, it's such a big thing that we're doing that the trust would kind of go back and forth. And then finally to have him really trust us and be willing to let us film and bring this out to the world, and now to work with him and keeping him safe and getting this technology out to the world is certainly one of the great pleasures and privileges of my life.
Wonderful. And Kimberly, you as well. There was several segments that I could feel your heart and your passion, and that is the piece that you really wanted to contribute and bring forth and share with the world. Would you like to share one of your favorite pieces from the film?
Sure. I would say, well, primarily I focused a lot on the health innovations while Foster did most working with the energy. I mean, we overlapped a lot, but that was my passion, and it took me a lot into Central and South America, where I was exploring various innovations. And I think what was most exciting and what kind of inspired us to do a second film was the commonality, that whether it was shamans talking about consciousness, expanding consciousness, or health innovators talking about everything from prevention to early diagnosis to cure, or the energy inventors, all of them were talking in terms of energy, recognizing that everything is energy, and that there is an organized geometric web of energy that we are made of and always interacting with. And that recognizing that and learning how to come into harmony with it, with frequencies, whether in technology or ourselves, is what allowed this opening into remarkable healing treatments and remarkable energy access and remarkable tools for expanding consciousness. So I initially had this vision that in the movie, there would somehow be one sentence that was begun with a shaman and ended with a philosopher and took us through consciousness, health, energy, environmental, innovations, and then all the way to the philosophy of non-aggression, which really represents kind of the philosophy of harmony. So it didn't happen that way. We didn't end up cutting that sentence together, but we could have, because so much was in common. And that was what was so fun to me when we talked to each other from all over the world. It was like, here's what I'm finding, here's what I'm finding. And it was really always the same story, just a different application.
Indeed, right? And I can hear myself and just letting you know. So when I think of the divine matrix or the Taurus energy, my husband and I went through the delegate program with Nassim many years back, about a decade ago. And he really spoke about, instead of finding the fundamental particle in life, we need to find the fundamental equation, right? Because as soon as we go into the micros or we come out of the macros, it's all one and the same. And it's that energy and reciprocity of going in and out and in, giving and receiving, receiving and giving. And so when you speak of healing, energy, all of these things, there's so many various pieces. And what is it that you feel is the deepest resonating piece of how we can shift and change the frequency of ourselves and the planet so that we can all thrive? You know, what is it in the world that gives you hope for our future? And what is that resonance and frequency?
So much what you've got represented in your gorgeous graphics for this gathering. It's those shapes and contours that are the toroidal dynamic, because as you mentioned, this is the fundamental pattern of sustainable systems throughout the universe. As far as we can tell, from the Planck length to the clustering of galaxies and the shape of universe itself, it's this. And so it's understandable why it's so compelling for more and more people these days, because it's not just some concept, it's actually the dynamic of who we are. And there are aspects of that dynamic that start with the center. The center of it is not empty, it's not void, but it's still. It's still in the sense that it's the balance of all the energy of the rest of the universe is balanced in that point at the center of every single torus, no matter what the scale. And that center seems to be the antenna, the speaker, the microphone for consciousness itself coming into any system. So given that we're all that, we all have our own center that then has our own inner guidance, and is expressed in our body and in our emotional torus, our mental torus, our spiritual body, and then connecting with others. It's like Kimberly was saying about this commonality that we found with all of these innovators. Every single one of them was speaking in relation to the torus. They were speaking in relation to vibration, frequency, and resonance. So I think we're at this amazing point in the evolution of human history where we're on the verge of blowing ourselves up if we don't figure this out. And at the same time, we are realizing, both in our consciousness and in our science, we're realizing the nature of the unified field of which we're a part. So it's kind of a race, as Bucky Fuller says, between utopia and oblivion. And I'm very encouraged. And one of the reasons why we made Thrive too is to help people understand this is who we are. We want people to fall in love with the unified field, because that means falling in love with yourself, capital S, self. And then all the rest of the drama of human life is just figuring out, okay, how do we resonate harmoniously with that field? And when we figure out how to do it technologically, we get free energy, clean, inexpensive. When we figure out how to do it biologically, we get breakthrough cures for cancer and chronic fatigue and all sorts of things. When we figure out how to do it in terms of consciousness, then we feel this natural expansion of our consciousness to include more and more of the cosmos and more of our connection with one another. And finally, as we portray in Thrive 2, it's led us to find people from all over the world who are unveiling this ethical philosophy of the non-aggression principle, what we call the freedom perspective, because it's really the application of these same scientific principles at the level of human, which really starts by honoring each individual torus that we each are. And if we're willing to do that and build our systems without any violation of the individual, then we can actually build a culture that thrives.
Wonderful. Love that. Kimberly, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. I think, for me, I'm very practical. I'm the producer, that's like, okay, is everybody at the right place at the right time, and making things happen. And so for me, the practical application of these sort of profound insights is what most intrigues me, and where I spend most of my time. So the notion of stillness, what I learned in the course of this, looking at the technologies, whether they were the health innovations or the energy innovations, initially those two, and also the shamanic stuff, and listening to the various spiritual teachers, is that when they say stillness is not still, that it's a balance, energy is constantly moving, and it's always this rhythmic, balanced interchange, then what does that mean practically is that peace isn't something that we achieve. Resonant technology isn't something that you lock into and you achieve it and there it is. It's constant presence and the ability to rebalance and rebalance and rebalance. And that's what the algorithms of a basic harmonic technology still involve, a way to stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned. And that's true for each of us. And so, in terms of giving me hope, it means that I understand what I'm after. I'm not after achieving some enlightened moment and it will therefore last forever. And if it doesn't, I failed. It means I develop the tools of being present so that I can self-correct again and again and again and again and again, quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker in that presence, in order to be able to be my highest self, most attuned to the infinite possibilities that state of resonance makes possible. And so in terms of a meditation practice or a health practice or any of those, it's a little more practical for me now when I know that. And in terms of what gives me hope on the human level is, I think that it's that practice that is actually at the heart of what is going to save us from oblivion and instead have us be in this thriving world. Is that I believe we've all seen that there isn't a magic political pill, right? It doesn't matter who wins an election. Half of the people are unsatisfied, at least, even if half are satisfied. And the same with health, that you don't get a magic pill no matter what you do with your lifestyle. There isn't something outside of us that can give us this balance and presence. That's a very personal task. And so our thoughts and our actions and our commitment to rhythmic, balanced interchange with ourselves and with each other is what it all comes down to. And that also is very practical. Like in our neighborhood here, people disagree hugely on the political, what they would hope for politically, but we all share values of what we want. And we've learned how to relate to each other based on those shared values, rather than on being divided over the strategies we have in mind for how to achieve them. And I think that's where people are going. And the more we know ourselves and the more we know we can rely on ourselves to develop these capacities for presence and for, being mindful of our thoughts and mindful of the quality of our interactions, I believe we can transcend these notions that someone else is going to do it for us. And instead, as challenging as it is to know it's up to us, we also get the gift of all that possibility holds.
Well put. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
yes, when I look to the future and I feel an imbalance at this moment, right? We were talking about that, and there's still a commonality and there's still hope for the future in the essence of what is it that is our collective future Earth vision, right? What is it that we all want? We all want to live in harmony with each other, with the land. We all want clean air and water. We all want good organic food to eat. We want to have a place where we can feel safe with our family and our community. And so when I look to the future and how we can all thrive for 7 generations to come, there are definitely solutions that will bring us to that vision being realized and come to fruition. And so one of the things that we wanted to discuss today is, what is your future vision for people living together without one team ruling over another? How can we live in community and thrive together as a community?
You want to go first on that one, Foster?
Sure. That's such a fun question, and it's so seldom discussed. It's critical that we be able to hold the vision of where we want to end up. And that's why we named our movies Thrive, because that was the single word that best represented, as far as we could see, into the evolutionary curve for a successful humanity. And it's nice to have kind of hallmark platitudes about rainbows and unicorns and so forth, but I love getting down into the nitty gritty of, okay, what would that actually mean? And that's the work that we've been doing. Is if you imagine that we all have clean energy, coming from independent sources in our home or in our communities. There's no pollution. It costs virtually nothing. And it's totally in harmony with the unified field that we live in. Imagine that the water running in the streams near your house is clean. You know, you can drink it. And imagine that the air, there's no chemtrails in the air. There's no pollution. There's no damaging EMF. And imagine as you walk along the street, looking into the eyes of one person after another who's actually thriving. Imagine that, like the glow in the eyes of people who are just thrilled to be able to live another day and are actually involved in activities that are in fulfillment of their purpose. And they have figured out well enough how to relate to other people such that the fundamental experience is love and collaboration. And I believe that vision is not only possible, it's necessary if we're going to survive as a species, because we now have this technology with which we can destroy our environment, with which we can destroy one another. And people are feeling so kind of hopeless and discouraged. And we made Thrive 2 to be an antidote for that, because what we got exposed to in terms of real life solutions that are already available on the planet, they already exist. They're not necessarily globally available. But we know that all of these solutions already exist. And I believe that represents the grounded hope that everybody is looking for right now.
Yeah, I think what I would say to add to that in my vision is that my vision is of a world where people have shifted their goal from coercing other people into their worldview, which is actually what you hear a lot in many of the conversations still to date. It's, when everybody wakes up and sees what I see and wants it to be how I think it's going to work, then we'll have a great world. And that's not, I think that's a dangerous actually way to think in terms of global peace and harmony, because it's actually coercion. And in fact, instead, if we shift our goal to develop the skills and the capacities to coexist respectfully when we don't agree, and that's where this whole notion of a non-aggression principle comes in. It's that there's one principle that everybody on the planet agrees to, which is a really big deal, that there's actually something that across every culture through all tongues, people do not want to be violated against their will. If they want to be violated, it's not against their will. So that's right there. You don't want to be violated against your will. And so that means we all want to avoid being coerced into somebody else's worldview. And yet we can't just have it run amok with there being no principles or guidelines. And the guideline is you get to do what you want and believe so long as it doesn't violate someone else and against their will. And when you realize the ramifications from that, it's like, oh my goodness, there's actually room for all of us, and the accountability that's required to know that you can do your thing, but you don't get to pollute what's going to run downstream, right? That you don't get to hide behind your corporate position and make decisions that violate people against their will and say you didn't make that decision. It's pure personal accountability, which takes us back to knowing ourselves and taking responsibility for ourselves and recognizing our co-creative role in shaping our reality and our future. So that's it to me. It's these skills for really developing these capacities that I see as the basis of a thriving future.
Wonderful. What would you say would be some of your principles? What I'm hearing is sovereignty and non-aggression and integrity, right? And can you expand a little bit more on what you visualize is some of the core principles and values that would be required to have a thriving future together?
Yeah, I think that may be the most important question of all, because I believe that in order to survive and thrive, we need to move beyond politics and align with principles. So the discussion of what those principles are, boy, that's the one to have. And if we look to the Taurus as the blueprint of sustainability, well, what's the nature of the Taurus? By definition, it's whole. If you have a Taurus whirlpool and somebody sticks their hands in and interrupts it, it's going to disappear. It has to have the wholeness of the shape in order to sustain. So one of the things that we encourage people to do is just learn how to look out at the realities that we're dealing with and recognize the brokenness of systems, the way the banking system is broken and the media system and the educational systems and the food systems. You just look at virtually every system and it's broken. And if we can recognize that, then we can look to see, okay, how do we restore the wholeness of an ecosystem? How do we restore an economy to the natural voluntary exchange that it is? How do we restore our media to where people can really get access to the facts and the evidence and authentic reporting? And the same thing in human relationships. So for us, I would say that the core principle is honoring the wholeness of natural systems. And then it shows up at different levels in different ways. At the energy level, it's dancing with the Taurus, and the universe gives you whatever you want. At the healing level, it's dancing with the wholeness of the human body and honoring the wholeness of each individual blood cell. That's the key to our health in our bloodstream. And then at the human level, as Kimberly was describing, it's not giving up our freedom for security. It's not giving up our sovereignty for the good of the quote group. A real group, a real community is a voluntary association of sovereign individual Tauruses. And that's one of the key misunderstandings that we've had. So I would say what we're doing in our work is trying to provide people the information and the infrastructure to be effective in finding their own purpose and then collaborating with other people to restore the wholeness of natural systems in whatever sector is most inviting to them.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's right on the principle level. I was just thinking that in terms of human emotion and where we're all at in this, that one of the things about understanding our place in the unified field, our place with each other, this sort of cosmic intertwining that we are and that we live within, there's something that reframes a sense of belonging, I think, in that, and gives us a different reflection of ourselves, which is fundamental to transcending fear. And to me, fear is the greatest tool of oppression that has ever existed. And it's our job to be self-aware enough and aware enough of how we're relating with each other that that's not what we're promoting, that we're promoting empowerment. Who are we and what in fact is possible? Because as soon as we transcend fear, the world opens up, everything opens up. And I know I would say Thrive too was sort of what would we say if we weren't afraid? That's how we've gone about it. Foster's always had the most fearless inquiry, like there's no taboo subject, right? What about this? What about that? And just take it wherever it leads us. And then what's revealed, of course, is beautiful, because if it isn't, it's not true. Because in fact, we live in an awe-inspiring, beautiful cosmos with infinite possibilities. And so anything less than that is a distortion.
Indeed. Yes, one of my favorite sayings is anything is possible and everything can happen, and everything is possible and anything can happen, right? We do live in an infinite well of abundance and just a place where we can create what it is that we want to have in our lives. I really believe that, and coming from a place of creator consciousness. So our experience is reflected by what it is that we believe in. And so if we drown in fear or stress or anxiety, then that is what we'll receive more of, right? It's the law of attraction. And so the more that we pull ourselves out of that and really look to have a positive perspective on every little thing, even an accident can be one of our greatest lessons in our life. Yeah. And here we are in very challenging times this year. Everybody is experiencing it in a very unique and different way because we all live in our own phenomenological world, right? We're all in our individual Tauruses having our own experiences of what's occurring. And so I want to ask you, what is it that you feel like, how can one person make a difference in these challenging times? And I want to tagline with, how can we find our purpose during these challenging times?
Well, first of all, I just want to acknowledge the joy that Kimberly and I experienced at seeing your theme of 11/11, because as some people might remember, we launched Thrive One on 11/11/11, and so that sense of unity and alignment and of individuals standing next to each other is very near and dear to our hearts. So it leads for me into answering your question of what can one person do? Because as Margaret Mead said, that's all that's ever gotten anything done is individuals joining into small groups, and that becomes larger groups. And we've really looked into that question very practically for a long time. And in our solutions sector process, we teach people to do, first of all, a path of inquiry, because it's so daunting to look at all the challenges in the world and think, I'm just one individual. What in the world could I ever do that would make a difference? And we suggest that the place to start is, of course, with yourself. And I believe, as my teacher Arthur Young taught me, that there's nothing in the universe except as a function of purpose. So if we start with, well, what is our purpose? And we encourage people to sit down. If you don't know it already, just ask yourself, what is my purpose in life? What am I here for? And it usually comes within about 15 minutes for people. And once you're clear on your purpose, which is not the same as a goal, it's not to, make $1 million by the time I'm 30 or to be the champion of this. So those are fine, but those are goals in time and space. A purpose transcends time and space, but it has direction. It's a vector that guides all of our activity. It's a compass around which we can orient our decision making. So as people find their purpose, it has to do with, again and again and again, with helping out, helping find one's own truth, and then help out humanity, help out the planet in some way by sharing that truth. So we encourage people, find your purpose. Let me give you an example. If my purpose were to continually improve the health of planet Earth, then that would be kind of a never-ending task, but I would make a lot of decisions in relation to it. Now, if I'm clear on that, then the next question we invite people to ask themselves is, okay, well then what sector of human endeavor most excites you, or do you have the most skills in? And let's say in this example that what I wanted to work on, obviously from my purpose, was the environment. So I would choose, out of our 13 sector model, I would choose environment. And then I asked myself, okay, well, what's the issue that I want to work on? Let's say my issue were, get the carbon pollution out of the air, get rid of the asthma and acid rain and all that stuff. And so in looking at that issue, then where a lot of activists get stumbled up is they think, well, it's just too big. I can't take that on. So we recommend keep looking to refine your own individual path by asking yourself, what's the level of engagement that most attracts you? In this particular example, if I were interested in immediate needs, which is level 1 of a 3-level distinction that we make, then what I might want to do is either invent or support inventors to get free energy devices out there that obsolete fossil fuels and, wars over people's oil and so forth. Now, if on the other hand, I was more oriented toward systemic change, then I might investigate and appeal to the public utilities commissions in my area, as I watched them do in Boulder, Colorado, to open up their sources of energy, not just to one monopoly of oil and gas and coal and so forth, but open it up to these alternative systems. And now they've got wind and solar, and they'll be adapting in the future for these new energy technologies. So I could do that at the systemic level. Or the third level is what we just call the consciousness shift. And I think probably a lot of your audience is very highly skilled in this area. And it may be the most highly leveraged of all, because the more accurate your worldview, the more accurate your conscious perception, the more accurate your systems are going to be, and the better you're going to meet the immediate needs. So with the energy example, if my area of interest, my level of engagement were the consciousness shift, I might spend a lot of time, as you apparently did with the Resonance Project, really investigating the unified field so that you would understand it, you'd understand how to be in harmony with it, how to access it in different ways, and how to teach other people to do the same thing. So that's a process of self-knowing, which if you have accomplished that, and most people can do it within half an hour, then you can either start a group or join a group, either locally or virtually anywhere in the world, that is doing exactly what you want to do. And then we've got all sorts of tools where we're teaching people to collaborate effectively, following the structure of the vector equilibrium and the flow patterns of the torus. And this has been proven over the last 12 years in different projects all over the world, that if you follow those basic principles, that you can collaborate really effectively, and then a small group can have leverage because you're aligned with the truth and the unified field that massive political movements or massive attempts at coercion could never have.
Yeah. We talk about it in Thrive too. We unpack this some, and also at thriveon.com, we have under the solutions tab, we're going to be launching a solutions hub, which is a free web app that people can organize, like Foster said, by issue or by region on any of these things. And I just wanted to say two things in this. One is that I think it's really important in the notion of the law of attraction and stuff. There's been a lot of oversimplification, I believe, that has people feeling guilty and ashamed and disempowered by the reality that we find ourselves in. When in fact we have been deliberately misled. And for those of us who weren't looking or thinking that way, it's easy to find, just kind of like, whoa, wait, what happened? And how did I unwittingly participate in this and all the rest? And it looks all overwhelming. And that's where there are things going on that really require action on our part. We do need to do some things. We need to change what we're empowering with our money. We need to change what our thoughts are. We need to change how we're interacting so that we're focused on these principles. So like what Foster was saying in the environmental example, it doesn't matter if you believe that it's man-made global warming or if you believe that it's sun-induced climate fluctuation, right? The point is, cleaning up the planet of human pollution and providing ways to interact harmoniously with the field is a great idea no matter where you are on that continuum. And recognizing that there are really dangerously consolidated corporate interests in keeping that from happening is also real. So it's like, okay, how do I not let that scare me, but instead inform me to have a more strategic, organized response to it? And that's where we come at this. Our intention has never been to, share bad news in order to have people feel defeated. It's like a diagnosis in your body. Once you understand the nature of the problem, then you understand what's the most effective solution that I can participate in. So while I believe that our thoughts and actions and how we spend our money and all of that absolutely co-create a reality, there are many forces operating that are doing that also that we haven't been paying attention to. And so now is our chance. I think more and more people are waking up and recognizing the need for us to take responsibility for our lives. And that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. It really is true. We're living in a time where we have to come into our sovereignty to realize what is occurring. And so the more people, as you say, wake up to the truth of what's occurring, then we can be empowered to move forward and find solutions and go into our purpose and really discover what it is. What am I here to do for the world? What am I, like, what kind of meaning is my life going to give to the world? What am I offering the world? And I feel like that is such an important piece. It's like the fundamental question of humanity. It's like, why are we here, right? Yeah. And so I feel like this piece is really starting to come forward for a lot of people as we are in these challenging times. Mother Earth basically sent us to our rooms like bad little children. Go to your rooms, take a time out, think about what you've done, think about how you've treated me, think about how you've treated others, and go within and really discover who you are as a person and start living your life and taking action from that place. So it really has given us an opportunity to take a time out and be with our family and be with ourselves and really listen to our authentic truth and our inner voice and our internal source energy that's occurring within us so that we can really determine, okay, how do I want to move forward right now? You know, this has taught me many, many lessons. What is it that I'm going to be offering and putting it into the world? And so, Foster, you mentioned on our previous call that you have created the Freedom Portal, right? The two of you are a little bit more about what that is.
Sure, I'd be delighted. Yeah, I don't know that Kimberly or I will ever make another feature film. It's like climbing Mount Everest, and we survived this one, and we're really glad that it's out. But I know that I will be in this conversation, the conversation that we're having right now, and particularly as it relates to the freedom principles and the geometric principles as the guidelines to how humanity can actually get out of this lethal mess and really have a beautifully sustainable culture on a very vibrant planet. I will be involved in that for the rest of my life. And so I'm focusing a lot of my energies now. I just wanted to open up a communication portal the same way you have right now, this portal that we're speaking through and that you're speaking to the world through in this gathering. I want to have an ongoing opening to communicate with humanity every which way, back and forth, about these principles and about the strategies and how we can truly empower ourselves to solve these major problems, because I know they're solvable, and I want to, within my lifetime, I'd be delighted to see a completely thriving planet. Realistically, I'm not sure that's going to happen. I'm not a young guy, but I think that I will see the tipping point toward that, where with my last thought, I could go, okay, humanity is on its way. We've actually found the principles, they're proven, and we're over the threshold into and toward thriving. And so to that purpose, we've opened what we're calling the Freedom Portal, and we do at least 3 shows a month, one of which is, I call it 7 levels deep. And if we take some sort of issue that's of interest to a lot of people, either a current event or unified science, it can be the full range. And we just take it and we go really deep, and we go into what's wrong. Why is it wrong? Who's benefiting from having it be wrong? And then what's the way out? And what can an individual do? What can we do in collaboration? And what's the world that it can lead to? And that we'll do that theme with every single issue. The subtitle is "There is Light at the End of the Rabbit Hole." And so then the second show is we just call it Network Dialogues. And that's where we just open the portal. And I usually put out some questions to our network for them to think about, and they'll answer a survey, and I'll go over all the answers, and we'll collate them into different sections, and then I'll do my best to address different ones. And then I'll share with them or bring them on to share their answers to my questions. So we really are engaged in the dialogue. This is not, Foster giving a speech to the world or something like that. There's plenty of that out there. But what's really needed is the power of the group mind. And the people who have subscribed to this this monthly exploration are, they're a bunch of heavyweight truth seekers and freedom lovers. And I'm learning as much from them as they are from me, and they're learning from each other and so forth. So the network dialogues are really like just a full-on, let's go for a Q&A. And then the final one is what we call the Worldview Pioneer Series. And that's when we bring on cutting-edge experts in different ones of the sectors on different issues. And we either do an individual interview, or what I'm especially enjoying now is the roundtables, where you get several people on, experts on the same issue, who don't necessarily agree. So it encourages the viewers to need to listen to expert testimony and then make up their own minds. What feels true, what feels like it serves their purpose. So we've got thousands of people who have signed up for this already. I'm really encouraged by the intelligence and the intention of the questions and the information that people are sending in. So we really invite people, if you haven't already, go see Thrive 1, go see Thrive 2, both available at thriveon.com. And then if that interests you, if this conversation is compelling and empowering for you, we strongly encourage you to subscribe to the Freedom Portal and be an active part of that conversation.
Wonderful.
Yeah. It's fun. I think the idea a lot is for people to develop the tools of what we're talking about, saying, oh, we'll learn how to coexist with respect. We have almost no experience in the last generations, really, of listening to people disagree respectfully. That doesn't happen. And now it's been at the ultimate of censorship, so that there's only one worldview. Well, we cannot learn to, so speaking of coercion, that's the ultimate. And instead, if we're saying, no, you get to believe what you believe, I get to believe what I believe, and we need to figure out how to do that in a way that we can coexist, well, we better learn how to listen beyond our own worldview to other people. So part of, Foster and I have always exposed ourselves to different opinions, so that we can think for ourselves, and we don't always agree with each other, right? So that you get at it and figure out, well, what do I think about this? And there are so many pressing issues where we each need to know ourselves and then find out what's the line for us. Like this is mostly, it's the Freedom Portal with Foster Gamble, and mostly he's taking these on and getting into everything from the elections and COVID and freedom and the freedom principle and all of that. And I'm going to be participating in some, and one coming up in March 27th, that I know I'll be doing. We're part of a roundtable with Greg Braden, and we'll be, the thing that interests me in how this comes right down to it is knowing ourselves and making the decisions for ourselves in ways that don't coerce others. So the whole medical freedom thing, it's all about data. There's all these example opportunities right now. Get a DNA test and we'll be able to really find out what your body most needs. Like, that's fantastic and innovative, and that information would help us. But who gets that data? And how can that be used in ways that might not be for the benefit of us or all people, in terms of an AI or transhumanist agenda and that kind of stuff? So being informed and aware, knowing who we are, like, I have a dental implant, I like that part of it, but I don't really want my brain connected to a computer, right? Like that. I just have to know what's my place in it, what's somebody else's, and listen to people who disagree, and have those respectful conversations. So I want to have somebody who's a real proponent of something I wouldn't go for, so that we can actually practice on the Freedom Portal this most important skill that we all need to get better at and develop, and that is respectful disagreement and self-knowing, and then developing the systems that reflect a principle of non-coercion. So you can do what you believe in, and I can do what I believe in, and we have the sovereignty to enforce that.
Mm-hmm. And it really does take compassion. It's always been a view of mine to, let me put it this way. I've never catered to one particular religion or specific dogma, because I really believe that all of it is everyone's own path to source or God, goddess, energy, whatever you want to call it. And so who's to say that one is right and one is wrong? And so for me, it's really about compassion and how can we unify our energies together? We're all individuals, and yet we're living in this unified field. And how can we live in unity and harmony together? And so we have just a few minutes left, and we're about to move into our synchronized global prayer for love, peace, harmony, and unity right after this interview. So I wanted to invite both of you to just share a few words on what it is that is unification and unity, that unified field. What is the deepest words of wisdom that you want to share with us about that?
Kimberly?
Well, for me, what's most profound is understanding and feeling that I am made of and a part of something so exquisitely designed to live and evolve. And so when I can relate to myself as an expression of that, I'm more inclined to be my better self and bring that to developing the capacities to listen to things that are hard for me to assimilate or hear, and to actually just be a better person. And so for me, unity and harmony is made up of individuals being our better selves, and the guidelines that help us do that, help us get back to that when we falter, and keep too much damage from happening in the meantime. And so I believe that we're headed toward an unprecedented level of self-responsibility, self-expression, and ultimately self-empowerment that will lead to a thriving world. And I'm grateful to be alive at this time, and grateful to be a part of communities like this, where this is what's on the top of our minds and in our hearts.
Yeah. Thank you.
One of the beautiful things about the Taurus as blueprint is that it demonstrates that an entity can be both distinct unto itself. You can recognize this Taurus or Anistara or Kimberly or Foster, but at the same time, it's unified with everything else. And I mentioned before, the stillness is at the center of each of those Tauruses. It can be called a black hole. Nassim refers to it as the black hole, white hole dynamic. And one of the things that I love about when you were talking about compassion and Anistara is that when we look in each other's eyes, when you look straight into someone's physical eyes, you're actually looking into a black hole, literally, but you're also looking into the black hole that is their soul, that is their still point, that is connected to the source of all Tauruses. And the experience of that, combined with the understanding of it, this is what we're referring to now and in Thrive 2 as the science of love. And I think that what you guys are doing in this amazing gathering is you're really embodying exactly that, where you're using these electrons which hurt you're using these technologies which hurt electrons in very effective ways and allow people to connect all over the world. Ultimately, I think for the purpose of that experience of that we are one in the real experience of the great love And from that place, as we choose what we do in our lives, we can actually create a thriving world.
Oh. Yes, indeed. And it is about love. Ultimately, what are we here to do? We're here to learn how to love and how to be loved. And so that is one of life's greatest lessons. I want to thank you two so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate it. Yes, indeed. We are going to add your website there, thriveon.com. You can also access it on 1111unify.com. You can go to the partner and affiliate page, and there's a Thrive banner there. You can just click on it and follows my affiliate link to the films.
Right.
And I'm just so grateful for the two of you. And is there anything final that you'd like to say? Our goodbyes.
No, just hello to everyone out there, and we wish you a thriving future.
Indeed. Thank you, 1111 Unify family. Thank you, Kimberly and Foster. We are so grateful, and blessed be all of you in our unified field trip, how to create a thriving future.
Thank you.